Wanted to get on here and let y'all know that is not, I seen it when I woke up this morning. I said, ooh, child, 3 in one day? That had to come from the Caucasus. Had to come from his daddy's side. You know, and I told his daddy when I had him, I said, if you put any of that gentleman spirit on my son, I'm going to rebuke you one day. He better be glad I like him, and I'm not going to blame him. And I'm going to hold my own son accountable like y'all say I don't do. But Jonathan, you're going to have to pick one. Okay? I don't give a fuck. Toss a coin, flip a penny, nigga. Pick one. Anyone. Okay? Filipino, Mexican, albino, I don't give a fuck. Pick one. God damn, you about to drive us all crazy.
Stop what you're doing, because this isn't regular relationship drama. This feels like one of those moments where the timeline accidentally exposes something it was never supposed to see. The kind of chaos that makes reality TV look scripted and family group chats go silent. Here's the headline nobody was ready for. Blueface allegedly spent the same day with Jaidyn, Alexis, Angela, and Nevaeh. Not the same week. Not the same month. The same exact day. And when that information surfaced, oh, it didn't just raise eyebrows, it summoned Karlissa like a storm warning. Because when Karlissa speaks, it's never quiet. It's never polite. And it's definitely never filtered. This wasn't just messy. This was Olympic-level multitasking. The kind of scheduling that makes people ask if Google Calendar needs to step in. And once Karlissa caught wind of it, the reaction felt less like commentary and more like a verbal earthquake. Fans say she went off. Critics say she finally said what everyone else was thinking. Either way, the internet grabbed popcorn, memes started flying. Timelines split into teams. And suddenly everyone was asking the same question. How does one man create this much chaos in 24 hours? This story isn't about one day. It's about patterns, about choices, about a family dynamic that stays viral without even trying. And once you hear how this unfolded, who knew what, who reacted first, and why Karlissa's words hit so hard, you'll realize this wasn't just drama. The moment this story surfaced, it didn't feel like gossip, it felt like a leak. The kind of information that was never supposed to be lined up this clearly, this publicly, this recklessly. Word started spreading that Blueface managed to spend the same day moving between Jaidyn, Alexis, Angela, and Nevaeh. Not spread out, not staggered. One calendar page. One sunrise to sunset stretch of chaos. And the internet reacted exactly how you'd expect, like someone just revealed a family secret during Thanksgiving dinner. Because let's be real, this wasn't just about who he saw. It was about the audacity of the timeline itself. Fans immediately started piecing together timestamps, posts, sightings, energy shifts. Screenshots flew faster than excuses. People weren't asking if it happened, they were asking how. And then came Karlissa. Because when Karlissa enters the conversation, things stop being theoretical. She doesn't speculate. She detonates. Her reaction wasn't measured, it wasn't diplomatic, and it definitely wasn't quiet. It felt like the voice of someone who had seen this movie before and was tired of pretending the ending would change. To understand why her reaction hit so hard, you have to understand the history. Blueface's relationships have never existed in isolation. They overlap. They collide. They blur into one long, chaotic storyline where boundaries are optional and consequences feel delayed. Fans have watched this pattern play out over and over. Like reruns nobody asked for but somehow keep watching. So when the same day detail leaked, it wasn't shocking, it was insulting, because it confirmed what people had suspected all along, that the chaos wasn't accidental. It was scheduled. Karlissa's reaction wasn't just about one day. It was about years of patterns stacked on top of each other. Years of watching the same behavior resurface under different circumstances. And when she spoke, it felt less like commentary and more like frustration finally finding a microphone. The tone mattered. This wasn't a calm breakdown. This was someone calling out behavior that had crossed from messy into reckless. The implication wasn't subtle. Moving like this in private is one thing. Doing it openly, carelessly, and predictably, that's another. Fans immediately split into camps. One group laughed it off. They treated it like entertainment, joked about calendars, schedules, and multitasking. They compared it to reality TV plotlines so ridiculous they stopped feeling real. To them, this was just another episode in a never-ending series. The other group wasn't laughing at all. They saw disrespect. Not just to the women involved, but to the entire situation. They argued that this wasn't confidence. It was chaos masquerading as control. That bouncing between multiple women in the same day wasn't player behavior. It was proof of instability dressed up as bravado. And Karlissa's words poured gasoline on that fire. She didn't sugarcoat. She didn't dance around the issue. The message was clear. This behavior wasn't impressive. It was exhausting. And more importantly, it was unsustainable. That's what made her reaction resonate. Because she wasn't speaking like a commentator chasing views. She sounded like someone who'd seen the ripple effects firsthand. Someone who understood how these patterns don't just stay between adults. They bleed into families, into children, into long-term damage that memes can't undo. As her reaction spread, the internet did what it always does. It reframed everything retroactively. Old arguments suddenly made sense. Past blow-ups felt connected. Moments that once seemed random now looked coordinated. Fans started saying, "This explains everything." And when a scandal starts answering old questions instead of creating new ones, it sticks. The pressure mounted quickly. People began questioning how much longer this cycle could continue. How many bridges could be burned before something permanent snapped? And whether this level of chaos was being mistaken for power. Because here's the uncomfortable truth the internet started circling around: control isn't juggling chaos. Control is not creating it in the first place. Karlissa's reaction pulled that truth into the spotlight. She wasn't just reacting to a headline. She was reacting to the normalization of behavior that had been excused for far too long. And when someone close enough to the situation speaks that plainly, it shifts the tone of the entire conversation. This stopped being funny. The same-day detail became symbolic. It represented a lack of boundaries, a disregard for consequences, a lifestyle that thrives on confusion and calls it freedom. And once people framed it that way, the jokes started feeling hollow. Because behind every viral moment is a real mess. And this one was starting to smell like something that couldn't be laughed off anymore. As reactions kept pouring in, one thing became obvious. Karlissa didn't just react. She reframed the entire narrative. What looked like entertainment suddenly felt like a warning. And once the internet senses a warning instead of a joke, the energy shifts. This was no longer just about who Blueface saw in one day. It was about how long this pattern had been allowed to continue. And checked out, and that realization opened the door to an even bigger wave of reactions. Ones that wouldn't stay confined to fans and meme pages for long. Once Karlissa's reaction hit the timeline, the situation stopped being a rumor and officially became a spectacle. This was no longer just about one chaotic day. It turned into a full-blown internet event. The kind where everyone suddenly becomes a detective, a relationship expert, and a moral judge all at the same time. Memes came first. Of course they did. Because when the internet can't process dysfunction, it turns it into comedy. People joke that Blueface must be running on military-grade scheduling. Others said his calendar needed a warning label. Some compared the situation to speed dating on expert mode. The jokes were ruthless, but underneath them was disbelief. Not the funny kind, the "how is this even possible" kind. Then the commentary channels jumped in. Suddenly everyone had a breakdown, a timeline, and a theory. Clips were stitched together. Old interviews resurfaced. Fans started aligning posts and appearances like they were solving a crime documentary. The same-day detail became the centerpiece because it made everything else look intentional. Not impulsive. Not emotional, calculated. That's when public outrage really started to simmer. Because juggling multiple women isn't new internet behavior. What shocked people was the lack of separation. No pause, no discretion, no attempt to pretend this wasn't happening. To many viewers, it felt disrespectful, not just to the women involved, but to common sense itself. And Karlissa's voice loomed over all of it. Her reaction gave people permission to say what they'd been thinking quietly for a long time. That this wasn't confidence. That this wasn't alpha behavior. That this was chaos disguised as control. And once that framing took hold, the narrative shifted fast. Influencers started posting vague captions about men who thrive in confusion. Podcasts dropped episodes without naming names. Everyone was suddenly talking about accountability, maturity, and patterns, not feelings. The conversation grew teeth. Fans split into two loud camps. One side treated it like entertainment. They argued this was exactly why people followed the story in the first place. Mess sells. Chaos trends. Nobody tunes in for stability. To them, this was reality TV playing out in real life, and Karlissa was just adding commentary to the show. The other side was dumb laughing. They pointed out that patterns like this don't stay funny forever. That overlapping relationships don't just affect adults, they ripple outward. They questioned how long this cycle could continue without something breaking permanently. And they saw Karlissa's reaction not as drama, but as frustration reaching its limit. The memes slowed down. The tone got sharper. People began revisiting older conflicts with new context. Past arguments suddenly felt less random. Old accusations didn't sound so exaggerated anymore. The same-day situation made previous chaos feel connected, not isolated. That's when the internet stopped asking what happened and started asking why is this still happening? Because at some point, repeated behavior stops being shocking and starts being revealing. And the more the public discussed it, the clearer the picture became. This wasn't a moment. It was a pattern finally exposed in high definition. Karlissa didn't need to name every detail. Her reaction alone reframed the entire story. What looked like reckless freedom now looked like unmanaged disorder. What once passed as bravado now felt like avoidance. And once the audience starts seeing things that way, the shift is permanent. By the end of this phase, the outrage wasn't just loud, it was layered. Humor sat on top of disbelief. Disbelief rested on frustration. And frustration turned into fatigue. Fans weren't just entertained anymore. They were tired. The fallout didn't hit like a punch. It settled like a fog, heavy, lingering, impossible to ignore. Once the memes slowed and the hot takes ran out of oxygen, what was left was something far more uncomfortable: consequences without a countdown clock. For Blueface, the shift was subtle but brutal. The same-day chaos stopped looking entertaining and started looking expensive. Not just financially, reputationally. Because once the audience stops laughing, they start evaluating. And evaluation is where the real damage happens. The narrative hardened. What had once been brushed off as reckless charm began to register as a pattern that refused to evolve. People weren't shocked anymore. They were resigned. And resignation is dangerous, because it means expectations have dropped to the floor. Karlissa's reaction aged fast, and not in a bad way. What initially sounded like an emotional outburst started reading like a warning label. Fans revisited her words with fresh eyes, realizing she wasn't reacting to a headline. She was reacting to a cycle. A cycle she'd seen repeat long enough to recognize where it ends, and that realization reframed everything. Suddenly, the same-day detail wasn't shocking because of the women involved. It was shocking because of the disregard, the lack of pause, the absence of boundaries, the sense that chaos had become routine instead of accidental. Public perception shifted quietly but decisively. Support didn't disappear overnight, but it thinned. Engagement turned colder. Comments stopped cheering and started questioning. The applause faded into side eyes. And once that happens, rebuilding trust becomes harder than surviving a scandal. Relationships took a hit too. At least in the public eye, people began speculating less about romance and more about damage control. About who was enabling what. About who was benefiting from the disorder. The conversation moved away from drama and toward accountability. which is never comfortable when your brand thrives on unpredictability. And here's the irony. The chaos that once kept everything viral now started working against itself. Because when everything is messy all the time, nothing feels special anymore. The shock value burns out. The audience grows numb. And numb audiences don't stay loyal. That's when fatigue sets in. Fans weren't just tired of the situation. They were tired of the repetition. Tired of watching the same story with different names. Tired of hoping the next headline would signal growth, only to get reruns instead. Karlissa's role in all of this became clearer with time. She wasn't just reacting. She was drawing a line. Her voice represented the part of the audience that had stopped romanticizing chaos and started counting costs. And when someone that close to the situation speaks with that level of bluntness, it lands differently. It doesn't feel like clout chasing. It feels like a checkpoint. This moment forced a larger question into the open. How long can a public figure rely on disorder as identity before it collapses under its own weight? Because chaos doesn't age well. It doesn't mature. It doesn't adapt. It just repeats until something breaks. And the internet could feel that break approaching. Not dramatically, not explosively, but inevitably. The same-day saga didn't end careers. It didn't cancel anyone. What it did was far more dangerous. It rewired perception. It taught people how to watch differently, how to expect less, how to detach emotionally. Once audiences detach, the power dynamic changes. The story stops being aspirational. It stops being entertaining. It becomes cautionary. And that's where things stand now. The headlines will move on. They always do. New drama will surface. New chaos will trend. But this moment stays filed away in the collective memory as the day the cycle became impossible to ignore. Because sometimes the loudest fallout isn't outrage. It's clarity. And clarity has a way of catching up quietly, steadily, and without mercy. Now it's your turn, because this story doesn't end without the audience weighing in. Drop your thoughts in the comments right now. Was Karlissa out of line? Or was she the only one brave enough to say what everyone's been thinking? Don't tiptoe. Say it with your chest. Hit that like button like it messed up your schedule and tried to blame you for it. Smash it like it owed you money and went ghost. Because if this story made you pause, the algorithm needs to feel it. And if you're not subscribed yet, fix that. This is where the real breakdowns live. No sugarcoating. No fake outrage. Just the chaos, the context, and the truth behind the headlines. Scandals don't knock here. They kick the door in. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next meltdown, the next exposed pattern, or the next "this wasn't supposed to come out" moment. Because if today proved anything, it's that celebrity drama doesn't sleep, it reloads. Remember this: chaos can be entertaining until it isn't. And when the pattern becomes clear, the excuses run out fast. Stay locked in. Stay watching. This is Celeb Sync, where the mess connects and the truth doesn't flinch.